India has taken a deep dive into offshore mineral mining by making its first offering of 13 blocks for exploration for auction. These include 3 lime mud, 3 construction sand and 7 polymetallic nodules and crusts. It's undoubtedly a landmark move. But why? It's because the demand for critical minerals is expected to rise exponentially in the coming years. So India is looking at tapping into the exclusive economic zone's potential to strengthen the blue economy sector and support net zero commitments. There has been no progress in offshore mining for 2 decades, despite the existence of the Offshore Areas Mineral Act since 2002. Now, India is looking at tapping into the potential of its EEZ area. To put that into perspective, India's current geological area is 688,000 square kilometers. India's exclusive economic zone is 2.37 million square kilometers. This move will now take the total exploration area to 3.058 million square kilometers. Well, the blocks have been opened near Kollam in Kerala, Porbandar in Gujarat and the Great Nicobar Island as well. Construction sand, lime mud and polymetric nodules and crusts have been offered in the auction. Union Coal and Mines Minister G. Kishan Reddy has described this move as a harbinger of a national critical mission which will strengthen the Indian mineral wealth. We have a vast 7,500 kilometer coastline. This is a massive opportunity, and amidst this exploration push, can India build a $1 trillion ocean economy is the big question. Joining us live at this point is Captain Shyam Kumar, former naval instructor. We also have Ajay Dua, former Secretary, Ministry of Industry and Commerce, live with us. Professor Madhav Narapat, editorial director of the Sunday Guardian, is joining us live. Pathikrit Pine, geopolitical analyst, is also with us now on the broadcast. Captain Kumar, let me make a start with you. How big a development is this from India? What do you make of this move?
For letting me opportunity to speak on the NewsX about the mineral wealth of the country towards the blue economy and the exclusive economic zone that India has. As you rightly brought out, the almost 2/3 part of the country, while we have the land mass, and then the 80% of further we must add the sea mass that we have, and it has the enormous potentials of wealth lying at the seabed, apart from the genetic that marine that we have, fishing, etc. So while we are looking at petroleum and fishing, etc., which is being used for the blue economy, there has been a constant effort on the Indian government to carry out seabed mining from last almost 20 to 30 years, and to claim areas where we must show our presence, not only for the blue economy, but also the international regions of the holding to the Indian Ocean, Arabian Sea, Bay of Bengal as sovereign de facto, not rights but the de jure rights, both as the case can say, because the presence of many other countries in this area is visible. So looking at the seabed mining, the licensing and the regulations, etc., are falling in line with the International Seabed Authority, which is a part of the UNCLOS, which was established by UNO in 1982. And accordingly, there have been some regulations in place. And recent development of India, like Indian Ocean Institute, Indian Technical Ocean Technology Institutes, these which are NIOT, NIO, these have been doing constant effort. And we have done some mining, we have done some survey, and we have established some evidences and wherewithal, machineries, technology used at it, because now we are advanced. Earlier, people were very, not very so clear about the sea mining, because it was not so economic and not considered, maybe awareness among the people at landmass was not so much. But now with the advancements, technology, underwater vehicles, robotics, etc., we are able to penetrate into this area, and we have selected few areas. Licensing by International Seabed Authority was not being given because of various reasons. The 60% of the area world over of sea is unclaimed because it is not under the exclusive rights of the coastal countries. Up to continental shelf of 350 nautical mile maximum one can claim, but the areas which are beyond it is all mankind's wealth all over the world. So it is can be claimed by anyone, and that is why with International Seabed Authority giving some licensing now, China, Russia, Germany, UK, Singapore, all these people have been given some rights for licensing and carrying out seabed mining in various parts of the world. Indian context, now the government has taken initiative. It was steady fast making some progress and ready to claim. And now we have come with some activities from this year, beginning of this year onward, when the licensings were being granted by the IC bed authorities. And therefore, the column, or we are looking at the the ANC mount of the central Indian Ocean, or the Nicobar Islands, or even the off Gujarat coast, where we are looking at many of the polymetallic nodules and lime mud, etc., construction mud, cementing, manufacturing factor. So I don't know how well it will come out. The logistic support, the security challenges, the sustainability, and the economy of it, all this needs to be looked at slowly. And I'm sure this needs to be started, initiated. Holding on to these areas and starting is a good initiative. And I congratulate the government and the people who are getting involved into it. Over to you.
Okay, let me in fact take that to Ajay Dua as well. Ajay Dua, this is of course a very strategic opening for India. How helpful is this initiative going to be in opening up this sector? Ajay Dua, are you able to hear me?
Yes, please.
Okay, yes, we can hear you now.
Right. Sorry. I think it's going to be extremely useful for India because we are basically mineral short country. And when we talk about critical minerals, much more than most developing countries of our size. Talking about size, we have a coastline, as was said, about 6,800 kilometers. It is longer than even China's. And China, in order to extend its economic zone, we know what it's up to in the South China Sea, quarreling with at least six of the Asian countries only on, and trying to block the passage of trade through the China Sea to get larger coastline, creating more islands. It will get an economic zone even from those islands once the world doesn't dispute it any longer. So having said that, hitherto we had not explored it, and I think even if we are starting with what used to be earlier called minor minerals, earlier there was a distinction made in the Act itself, minor minerals and major minerals. Minor minerals were left to administered by the state governments, and the major were central. But once under the new Mining Act of 2005 or 6, some changes have been made even in the definition. But having said that, I am of the point that even if they are minor minerals like sand, which has been talked about, relevant for cement companies, relevant for construction material companies, today the coastal, anything which is found in the coast, one, it will augment the supply. We today have bans on excavating sand for environmental and pollution reasons from dunes where they are mostly found, as well as from the riverbeds. And a lot of this illegal work takes place, and that only means a little more regulatory monitoring, corruption, and all those kind of things. But even if you start getting these in the coast, I think it will be one very useful to make environmentally friendly and economically friendly, because all along the coast, the habitations, the towns came up originally along the coast, and along the 7,000 kilometers of our coast, we have very large consumption centers. So movement from there and from the coastline through inland shipping, inland wharfs and other things being constructed, fine. But that is less polluting, less fuel consuming than truck movements from one part of the country, one part of the state to the other. So I see in it advantages all the way. Finally, I would say that I think we will need to do a lot of preparatory work. Auctioning might be taking place at Porbandar for these 13 blocks, which you mentioned, being in Gujarat and Kerala and the Greater Nicobar Island. Reason being that, all right, today GSI has done the work. NIO, National Institute of Oceanography, is doing the Goa-based NIO. They are doing a considerable amount of work. But once we want to exploit all this 2.6 million square kilometers, we would need many more players than just GSI or the NIO. And that is where I would think that we might like to see whether the coastal states, and we have 9 or 10 of them, whether they can be involved, and meaning it's the Indian government will have to delegate, license them, because the economic zone rights, etc., west in the nation and the concerned nation has to delegate. That's number one. Second, I think there is an issue of technology, though it was said that we are a technology-rich country, etc. Fine, but you would recall that when Reliance and BP of the UK partnered to explore, undertake sea,
Yes.
oil exploration of the coast of Andhra Pradesh.
Right.
They had to give up because they didn't have the experience to do deep sea exploration or extraction. So it was Reliance, so that it was able to absorb the loss, etc. BP left them and went away. So we would need to have.
Okay. Let me get in Professor Nalapat at this point as well. Professor Nalapat, this is of course a big move that the government has made now. How important is this the auctioning of these blocks going to be to set the ball rolling into offshore mineral mining, and what do you make of this initiative that the centre has taken?
Well, Uday, I'd like to point out that what Mr. Dua said is absolutely correct. And if you go back 50 years even, you will see that a lot of offshore mining could have taken place, but unfortunately, external players with a vested interest managed to bribe the relevant agencies and authorities. I was told, for example, by a source in ONGC that some very highly potential oil blocks, higher up officers were basically induced, incentivized to ensure that that completely stopped on the grounds that it was insufficient. I think there is a lot of research to be done there and a lot of accountability to be fixed there. And I think in Modi 3.0, a lot of that, we may call it frankly corruption, is removed, so that if there is really potential, it will be utilized rather than covered up by external players. For example, oil and gas. External players would like to keep India reliant on themselves for oil and gas. So a lot of effort has gone in by them to ensure that our own gas and petrol and oil reserves are kept to a minimum. So this is an important point. And now may I point out, Uday, the importance of rare earths, which is abundantly there in the blue water economy. And rare earths are going to be critical, frankly, for the modern era. You're talking about the silicon chip, which is now so important in the modern era. And India is going to need a huge quantity of that. If you import that, it will be terrifying. The cost will be terrifying. And I'm very certain we can locate it here, undersea, in our exclusive economic zone. And I'm sure the Navy, under Prime Minister Modi, will ensure that it is kept secure. You will remember, Uday, that the most valuable monazite thorium sands of Kerala and Tamil Nadu were allowed to be dredged and exported of all countries to China for decades altogether. Why? Obviously, some people felt there's a good idea to send it to China rather than try and develop the thorium technology in India, or with the help of friends of allies of India, rather than those who see India as a rival. Now, the thorium story is another story waiting to be explored. And, then you will see the depth of, frankly, anti-national activities that has been generated as a consequence of gross corruption and greed. So I think, Uday, this is a very hopeful sign, and this is very essential in ensuring that India reaches the third spot in global rankings by hopefully the end of the Prime Minister's present third term. And I think it's very important to ensure that what happened in the past does not repeat itself in the future, and any efforts by interested parties, external or internal, to sabotage some efforts should be put down with a very heavy hand, Uday.
All right. Let me, in fact, take that to Pathikrit Pine as well now. Pathikrit, as far as, of course, now this offshore mining node is concerned, how hopeful are you that this is going to be seized on, by entities who, of course, will hopefully, potentially discover more minerals here, which can boost India's mineral capacity? Also, is this just one step in the right direction? Do you hope for more follow-up measures to this as well?
Well, it's definitely a very positive step, but I only hope that it doesn't end up as one step forward and two steps backward. I'll tell you the reason for this. First of all, there is a lot of optimism, and I'm strongly in support of that. But one thing is very important, it takes the economy to reach a critical inflection point before it gets that capacity to extract and optimize, mining of its offshore capacity, offshore reserves, because it's not as easy as, mining the onshore reserves. So I think India has reached that position. Secondly, auction itself has to be viable in terms of ensuring that organizations don't end up exporting it, as Professor Nalapad mentioned. You need to ensure that the minerals, whatever is discovered and found, is used in India for value addition. Professor Nalapad mentioned about the thorium. It's literally a scam that happened of, gigantic proportion. And I don't know why, for what curious reasons, the entire bureaucracy was sleeping over that. There is another issue I must mention. It's about the methane hydrate. In 2009-10, there was enormous amount of excitement about the availability of methane hydrate in seabeds. It's similar to the offshore minerals, and that could have solved a considerable amount of our energy requirements. And that was a kind of a green energy. For certain very, very curious reasons, in spite of initial efforts, the entire exploration of methane hydrate got stopped. And I'm sure there were external pressures. So the issue is this that India is also exploring of going ahead and expanding, asking for expansion of its exclusive economic zone from 200 nautical miles to 500 nautical miles. You have an enormous exclusive economic zone. You need to explore it, but it cannot be an exclusivity of only a GSI or some other organization. You need to actively involve the private sector. You need to incentivize the private sector. You need to tell them that there is a future in it for them. It should not be that they do the excavation and tomorrow they feel that they have been shortchanged. And I think we should, beyond a point, reduce our dependence on foreign explorers coming and doing it. Let the Indian companies, treat it as a nascent sector, like the space startup, arena. So we have discovered lithium-ion reserves in Jharkhand, Jammu, in Rajasthan. The next step is to ensure what we do with that. Similarly, in case of offshore minerals, it is important to ensure that it becomes viable, and organizations set up, integrated factories within the country to take that and manufacture whatever necessary within the country, rather than any particular state government finds it's more feasible to export for its own exchequer for a few dollars more. We need to be very careful about that. It's a very strong and a positive step in the right direction. There are 3 steps which have been taken, I must mention. Number 1, Mines and Minerals Development Amendment Act, which happened in 2021. The auction process itself is a very good, initiative. It takes care of the interest of both the state and the companies which will be actually exploring. That's one very good thing. Second, you have already determined what are your strategic critical minerals, which is also very good and a positive one. Third is this is huge, but we must be careful about one thing. Invariably, as we have seen in the last 3 or 4 years, there will be external pressures, so that we either stop it or we co-opt with them and give them a larger share. And how we deal with that pressure itself, the government is very capable in terms of dealing with that. I have no doubt about it, but we need to ensure that somehow this stays back and value addition happens here, without instead of it getting exported. If it gets exported as a commodity, then it doesn't help or doesn't excite us anymore. That is the most critical part. Back to you, Uday.
Yes, no, but the question, of course, also is, Professor Nalapat, if there was a Mineral Act like this, why wasn't this done earlier? Why wasn't this move made earlier, to tap into this domain?
Look, let me tell you, Uday, that it is, as Pathikrit very correctly said, and I really am very appreciative of what Pathikrit was saying, and the straightforward integrity with which he's saying it, whether it is methane, whether it is the thorium, so many unexplored avenues, unexplored because of external pressure. Now, it is a difficult process to remove this external pressure and their internal saboteurs. And Prime Minister Modi has been at work at it right from the time he took over in 2014. And I can tell you that by now, I'm sure he has got the confidence that he has managed to get a hold of the system and managed to remove those elements of the system that are involved in sabotage of the national future or the future of young people like Pathikrit. We've got such a lot of young people. Their future should not be held hostage to a small group of influential individuals working under the pressure of external vested interests. So the Prime Minister is now clearly confident that the hold of these vested interests has been broken, and which is why this is being announced with such fanfare. You recall that, as Pathikrit was saying, in the previous era, other matters such as what he was discussing, methane, etc., were with a lot of fanfare. Even discovery of very high quality iron ore, and then suddenly it just petered out. Why did it peter out? And during that time, people told me, who were in the agencies dealing with it, that look, this is just a question of external activity or internal saboteurs and nothing more than that. I have in fact written about it quite extensively. So I want to say one thing, Uday. This is a very welcome sign, and say that getting rid of corruption is a sine qua non, a necessary condition, frankly, of India becoming the third largest economy in the world. Prime Minister has been actively at work on this, and now in Modi 3.0, you are seeing an acceleration of that progress take place, Uday.
Okay, let me in fact take that to Captain Sham Kumar as well. Captain Sham Kumar, how much is this also going to boost our goal of having $1 trillion ocean economy?
Thank you. See, this three things I look at it first, as I said, what blue water economy. Now the country is gearing up to understand the sea wealth, and therefore there is a thrust public awareness. I must quote: Japan has the largest seabed mining, activities going on, but there have been a lot of public disinterest because of not going to the sea. Then they are having conventional land masses mining, and therefore they are having trouble. So the public awareness, and then the technology coupled with it, which we have done, like with the Varaha 3 vehicle in the Nicobar Island, the NIO carried out the research where the machine went down, and we have proved ourselves that we can do it. That's why it has taken time, because you see the Gaganyaan, the Samudrayaan mission, which is coming up, it is a crew mission which is going down. So tomorrow we will see the entire setup happening inside. Petroleum, ONGC, even we are going into South China Sea to carry out exploration of oil. There are some strategic gains. There are some bystanders. There are some other fallouts of all this. We all know this. We have been making our presence in different parts of the world for various regions. But as far as the technology, the will of the people, political will, which rightly was pointed out by most of the panelists, political will, and the getting other things away so that there is no disturbance and we remain on our path. So with this, economy it will bring economy to the country. Obviously, our economy is growing. It is rising from that fifth to fourth to third, and therefore in that goal and aim, this is going to definitely add. My concerns about sustainability, which I said, viability, which I said in the beginning, and also the logistic as well as the security concerns, because 3,000 kilometers in AIM Seamount in central Indian Ocean, or the Nicobar this several ridge which is there. Now see, there's sea lanes of communication going to through Malacca Strait.
Yes.
They are all very close to it. So there has to be a lot of
Point taken. Let me leave a quick closing comment now to Ajay Dua.
I'm very optimistic that what we are going to be witnessing in a few days' time, when the first meeting, laying out the procedures, first the GSI is going to be describing at this meeting, as I understand, what's the potential they have located, so that the potential buyers or potential prospecting teams are assured that it is a viable reserve. Because any small reserve, etc., you may not see much participation from the private sector or even a government player, government-owned companies player. Second, that tender conditions, the broad tender conditions would be discussed. The government's plan would be indicated, and feedback recalled, saying, are they okay, or would they like to see changes, etc. It's like a consultation in a public forum. And third, telling the GSI, telling them that which are the other areas it is working on, because in these three areas, which they have 13 blocks, some private sector companies might be interested, some may not be. Because for minor minerals, people would be more interested to see this happening near the points of consumption, because they would like to optimize their freight logistic costs, etc. So I am optimistic that if steered properly, we are in for considerable relief to our meeting the requirement of minerals, particularly not only critical, because critical ones have, thorium was certainly a very good example, it would have been a critical one, but many more rare earths and others we need to explore for. But whatever we have found, we can encash that, we can put it to good use, our economic and social use. Thank you, then.
All right, my thanks to all of our guests for joining us on this discussion. It's time for a very short break. Stay with NewsX.